Two things we always look for at The Informer are integrity and honesty. But right now, I think those things are disappearing from our media, from our government, and the world of medicine. Instead, those very ingredients have become fodder for a host of corporations. So here's a question I ask. Why are people suddenly being muzzled when they choose to voice an opinion of difference, one that's contrary to a narrative being driven by some of the world's largest and most powerful companies and or people? Never has this been more apparent to me than since the emergence or the arrival of COVID and all this talk of vaccines. Now, debates are healthy, they really are, because they give us insight, they give us a perspective, and they allow for independent thought and opinion. That's so important in this democratic world of ours. But there is a pattern emerging where debate and expression of a counter-opinion is being silenced, vilified. Why is this happening? Why do we see the need to persecute a difference of opinion, whether something is legitimate or not? We should be free. We should be free to ask questions. Instead, what we're seeing is people condemned, condemnation, all over the place. It's been directed at those who raise questions. And it's also been directed at those who speak out against contrary views. Now, is this acceptable? I think not. Many of you may well suggest that we are being anti-vacciners or we're promoting conspiracy theories. Let me assure you we aren't. Last week, The Informer ran an editorial on Margaret Court and the vilification around her being awarded Australia's highest civilian honour, the Order of Australia Medal. People struggle to actually come to terms with the fact that she doesn't believe in homosexuality. They saw it as a legitimate reason to actually deny her an OAM. We chose to speak in favour of Margaret Court. Margaret Court, the tennis player, the supreme star. Supporting Court's OAM was the right thing to do. And so, it's also right to question the integrity of journalists, news organisations, governments that profess, on one hand, that they're independent, and yet they allow themselves to become puppets for some of the world's largest organisations, Big Pharma being one of them. The influence of Big Pharma in the media, as of late, has become astounding. Its control is proving devastatingly dangerous, especially around the subject of vaccines. Their scientific legitimacy and whether the efficacy and the science is sufficient. We're hearing it all the time. But what we're also hearing is even more dangerous. We're hearing from organisations like Google, who are heavily invested in Big Pharma. These lines of influence that destroy freedom of speech are being corruptors. Social media has become a flagship for Big Pharma. Google is heavily entwined and entangled financially with the pharmaceutical industry. It's invested more than $715 million in Glaxo. And you know what? It works with all the pharmaceutical companies, and as part of a larger company, Alphabet, as part of the other subsidiaries of that company, making vaccines. Now, this view that we're espousing may offend Google. In fact, they may choose to take this editorial down, thereby proving our point that the right to question is followed by immediate censorship. Now, it's the really small things that people are blind to, and that's why they require telling. People shouldn't mistake what we're saying. What we're saying at The Informer is that we know and we believe that vaccines are vital. That is so true. They've changed our world. Vaccines have eradicated some of the deadliest diseases the world's ever seen. Without vaccines, disease would have claimed many lives. So again, vaccines are amazing, especially if the science and their efficacy is proven rather than just inconclusive. It's a point that many are questioning right here, right now, how the COVID vaccines have been developed and the speed at which they're being rushed to market. They need to be properly tested. That's been said from day one. Protection against legal liability was given to pharmaceutical companies in 1986 by the Reagan administration in the United States, when Pfizer, of all those companies, admitted that vaccines could not be made safely. Now, vaccines are worth billions to Big Pharma. People's voices are being shut down. And that's something that everybody should be really concerned about. Millions of men and women died during World War II fighting against fascism and the right to freedom, and the freedom, of course, of expression. Now, those freedoms are suddenly being eroded by a new form of fascism. White-collared hoodlums in suits, seduced by power and money, corrupted by power and the control it affords them. It's money over safety. What's really troubling, and this is the part that sticks in my craw, is that our media, our government doctors and scientists have bought into it. They're the very people who we entrust with our lives, and they're failing us. I say failing because their independence no longer exists. Failing because that integrity I spoke of earlier no longer has the same meaning. Failing because it really is a case of power and profit over humanity. Failing because they no longer actually are the voice of the people, but they're the voice of Big Pharma. And failing because they no longer give people that voice that's all important. Failing because they are no longer seekers of the truth, nor do they protect the rights of freedom or the individual. We need to be able to ask questions when we believe that something is not quite right. There are millions of people globally, and that number is growing daily, who believe that the science behind the COVID vaccines is questionable. Now, if that belief holds true, then people need a platform to express their concerns without being judged or vilified. So let me remind you again what we did when we introduced The Informer. We did it for one reason: to be a voice for the people and to inform you about matters that affect us each and every day.